At this hour, the national polling average shows Hillary Clinton with a 7-point lead in a two-way race and an identical lead in a four-way. The betting odds continue to show her a favorite, now by nearly 5-1. Now, you just saw that real clear average, but many of the polls factored into that have significantly different results. On Thursday, the latest Fox News poll had Hillary Clinton up by 7 points in a four-way race. Then Sunday, an ABC Washington Post poll showed Clinton up by only 4. The roller coaster continues as NBC News and the Wall Street Journal put Clinton up by 11 on the same day. How is this possible, people ask me. Scott Jennings, who does political analysis for the George W. Bush White House, joins me now from Louisville, Kentucky. Scott, I hear this all the time. People say these polls are all over the place. How can we believe any of them? They seem to have disproportionate numbers of Democrats in the samples that favor Hillary. What about it?
Well, some of the national polling has been noisy. Some of that is racked up to the fact that they use random digit dialing, which can create noise. Very few of the national surveys actually call up a voter file, although some do. The other issue is, when are these polls taken? You can get great variance in results depending on when you're in the field. The final issue, I would say, is that margin of error is not a joke. Margin of error matters a lot. And so if they say their poll is a margin of error of 3 or 3.5 points, that's on each candidate's number. And so you can get some variance in these surveys, and that's why most statistical analysts will tell you, trust the polling averages. And right now the averages point to a Hillary Clinton lead in this race.
Yeah, tell me what you mean by causing noise. You said at the beginning of that answer that some of these factors cause noise. Explain that if you could.
Sure. If you're using random digit dialing, you're calling up random people and asking them if they're going to vote, and you don't actually know whether they're registered to vote or not. They can tell you they are, and they can tell you they may have voted for Romney or Obama in 2012, but that doesn't make it true, and a lot of people don't want to admit they voted for a losing candidate, or maybe they don't want to admit that they aren't registered to vote at all. And so a random digit dialing is something that most campaigns don't do anymore. Most campaigns call directly off the voter file, because then you can actually guarantee you're speaking to someone who's actually got a chance to vote in the election.
Now, talk to me a little bit about more about margin of error. When you say if a margin of error is 3.5, which is a common margin, 3.5, 4 points, that means that you're talking about a range that could be as high as 7 or 8 points, right?
That's exactly right, and that margin of error is on each candidate's number. The margin of error is actually higher on the difference of the two candidates. It's like 1.5 times what the difference is. And so you see a number that says Hillary Clinton is winning 50-45. Well, she could be anywhere from 47-53, and Trump could be anywhere from 42-48. And so a margin of error means something, and it means the candidates are likely to get in that range. And that's why you might see an ABC Washington Post at +4 and somebody else at +11, because the margin would account for most of that variance.
Now, we recently, one of our recent polls had Secretary Clinton up by a couple of points. And then we came along some days later. Things had happened in the interim for sure, and we had her up 7. And people looked at the two polls and they said, well, wait a minute. In the sample there, the Democrats were polled by +2. They were 2 percentage points more than the Republicans in that poll. And when you came to the next poll where she was up 7, it was Democrats +9. So doesn't that explain the result and make it clear that it's simply because you oversampled Democrats?
Well, it's a good question, and people are right to ask questions about polling, but in this case, it's not a good metric to unwind a poll. Party registration, or self-identified party registration, is not something we have a national database on. You can't tell me how many Democrats there are, or Republicans, because party registration in most states is a state of mind. Some states do make you vote in a party or register by a party, but in most cases it's an attitude. It's not a demographic. And so the truth is, in most presidential elections since the 1950s, Democrats have had a slight, or in some cases enormous, party identification lead over Republicans, but it hasn't always meant that Republicans lost. In 1980, Democrats had a registration ID of +15, and we know Ronald Reagan won. Democrats led in 84 and 88, and Republicans won. Democrats enjoyed a lead in 2000, and Bush won. It was even in 2004, but in both of Obama's elections, Democrats did also have a self-ID advantage. However, in the 2014 midterm, Britt, Republicans were R+1 nationally. So you see some fluidity in how people are determining which party they are in, and it can be affected by who they're voting for at that moment, what's in the news, and other factors that really don't have anything to do with how they're registered in their particular state.
Very helpful, Scott. Thanks very much.